Hello everyone, welcome to my very first Dark Souls lore video. After the release of Dark Souls 3 and the ending of the trilogy by way of Dark Souls 3's DLC, we have found out what's happened to most, if not all, of the characters and NPCs along the way. Most of what we know comes from fan theories that are widely believed. But what I've never seen, what I've never heard any fan theories on, is what happened to Smough. Now, we know through the most widely believed fan theory what happened to Ornstein here. After the gods left Anor Londo, Ornstein was the only knight to stay, along with his then comrade Smough, the royal executioner. They stayed behind to guard Anor Londo, and who they assumed was Princess Guinevere, which was only an illusion created by Dark Moon Gwyn. After the death of Dark Moon Gwyn and the dissolution of the illusion of Guinevere, Ornstein decided there was nothing left for him in Anor Londo and decided to leave. He went in search of his friend, the Nameless King. It is widely believed that he found the Nameless King and was convinced to take the path of the dragon and became the storm drake that the Nameless King rides in the boss fight. This is supported by the fact that we find both Ornstein's armor and weapon in the Nameless King boss arena. But what happened to Smough after Ornstein left? Well, I wish I could say that I thought there was something very interesting that happened to Smough, but that's not what I think. I think Smough just stayed and lived his life in Anor Londo. Where in Anor Londo do you suggest that I think he stayed? Well, come with me, friends, and I shall show you. I believe this to be Smough's house. I believe this is where he lived, this is where he stayed. And my first bit of evidence is this room here, which appears to be a soup kitchen. And we all know how Ornstein loved his bone soup. Second piece of evidence I will submit is this painting. This painting is seemed to be regarded with some reverence by the owner of this house, as illustrated by the fact that it has two candlesticks illuminating it, and it's set apart from the rest of the paintings in the house. Now, this is a painting, of course, of Princess Guinevere, someone whose protection Smough was charged with, or at least who he thought it was charged with. And it would make sense that he would have great respect and admiration for his charge. Now, as for Exhibit C, I will submit to you these three treasure chests, one of which contains a divine blessing, which is neither here nor there. However, the other two, one of which contains Smough's great hammer. Twisted Hammer associated with Smough, the last knight to remain at his post guarding the ruined citadel, meaning that he stayed there even after Ornstein left in search of his friend Gwyn's eldest born, the Nameless King. Why would this hammer be in one of these treasure chests? Well, it's because that's where Smough stored it when he no longer had a use for it, because there was no one left to protect Anor Londo from. The other one of the three treasure chests that I want to talk about contains the Leo Ring. Ring associated with Dragonslayer Ornstein, one of the four knights of Gwyn, the First Lord. Ornstein was the first knight of the Sun's eldest born. The Sun's eldest born, which would be Gwyn's eldest born, would be the Nameless King, supporting the theory that that's who Ornstein went to find. But why would the Leo Ring have been in Smough's house, you ask? Well, perhaps Ornstein, no longer believing that he needed it or was worthy of it, for the Knights of Gwyn were no more, left it to Smough, his comrade in arms, his comrade in protection of Anor Londo and Princess Guinevere, as a sign of their camaraderie and brief friendship. The very last piece of evidence that would support this being Smough's house and being where Smough stayed after everyone else left Anor Londo until Aldridge and Pontiff Sullivan took the city and reformed it into Irithyll of the Boreal Valley. I would assume Smough would find Aldridge a kindred spirit, being that they're both cannibals. So it would make sense that maybe Smough, bored with life and wanting something to do, retook his position as the Royal Executioner under Aldridge and Sullivan. Now, him retaking position, or just keeping with being an executioner, is supported by my final piece of evidence. The house, which I believe to be Smough's, which I believe to be where he held residence until his death, is situated over top of none other than the Irithyll dungeon. Now, where would an executioner be most likely to perform his job? In a dungeon. So it makes sense that his house was close to the dungeon, being both executioner and most likely chief warden. Now, him being the chief warden is supported by, I think, the warden masks, the faces of the warden masks, looking very similar to the face of Smough's helmet. Perhaps they revered Smough, or because they worked for him, they decided they wanted to emulate him. So that's it, folks. That's my theory as to whatever happened to Executioner Smough. Lived out the rest of his days in Anor Londo. Probably became executioner again under Aldridge and Sullivan. And probably ultimately consumed by Aldridge. Also, you get Smough's armor after having reached the Distant Manor bonfire. Well, you're able to purchase it. So this is my theory on what happened to good old Smough. Not as much interesting as the adventure that Ornstein obviously went on. But still, a fitting end to a decent life. That about wraps it up for me, folks. Please like and subscribe. You can see my videos below. And I'll see you all next time.